The moment I fell in love with rugby was that Saturday. I remember it was 3-3, first half, and I saw the ball on the ground, and I kind of went to dive on it, and basically I ended up getting stepped on. The other team was rucking me out, and they were like, "He's got his hands on it." I got my hand stepped on, my shoulder, and the guy was like kicking me, and the ref blows his whistle. And I hear people saying, "Penalty." And I'm thinking, yes, these guys are kicking me and stepping on me. It's not allowed. The ref points at me. He's like, "You didn't let go of the ball." I'm like, what?
Hello amateurs, welcome to episode 19 of the Amateur Rugby Podcast, here to help soothe your Sunday morning hangover with some sense-defying rugby chat about the grassroots of the game. I'm your host Tim, and today I'm in the Galapagos Islands. On my first night here I planned to go out for a run, but as I was heading out I slipped and fell down a flight of 13 stairs. Unluckily for me, my left buttock hit every single step as my phone flew out of my hand, but thankfully landed in a nearby flower pot. It was a bit of a shock, but my years of playing rugby stood me in good stead. I took more damage most game days, so I just dusted myself off and got going on that run. Did you all enjoy last week's episode with Stephen Corlett? It was another cracker, wasn't it? If you haven't listened to it yet, make sure you do. I had this great feedback from Sarah Corlett. I've listened to both Taff and Griff's podcasts and absolutely loved them. I was a bit sceptical because I don't know much about rugby, but you don't really need to, as they're really warm, funny and interesting chats. Thanks, Sarah. Possibly a bit biased, but I'll take it. If you want to get in touch, then you can get me at AM Rugby Podcast on Twitter and Facebook. But my guest this week is Greg Curtin. Curtin and I are Nomad friends. We met on a big floating conference on a cruise ship in the sea. We then spent 3 weeks living on a beach in Brazil with a load of other nomads, where we surfed, worked, did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and even took part in an Improv Comedy night. This interview was recorded in December of 2019 in Dubai, and we talked about comparisons between rugby and traditional American sports, Curtin's extensive experience of playing all around the world from America to England, Italy, Austria, Uganda and China. Oh, and you can't miss his story about how he attempted to get a Fijian to play in the NFL. This one is not to be missed. Please give it up for Greg Curtin. Greg Curtin.
How you doing?
Welcome to the Amateur Rugby Podcast.
Wow, I feel like I'm a very amateur person, so this is quite suitable.
You're going to fit right in. So I thought we'd just start by talking about what we've been doing for the last 17 odd days.
Oh my gosh. All right. Yeah, we were, you and I were on a boat. Let's call it a ship, actually. Not our first voyage. It was a little ditty called, Nomad Cruise. And how many days did we?
17.
17 days.
Yeah.
From Athens, Greece, through the Suez Canal, down the Red Sea, over here to Dubai. So it's been 200 so of us just flopping around on a ship, having meetings and talks and eating a lot of buffet food.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I kind of feel like the same way I feel after the end of a rugby tour. All-inclusive alcohol for 17 days is not a good idea.
I will say my body feels much better today than it ever has after any match. But yeah, you have your people. I remember we used to have tournaments for St. Patrick's Day once a year. And we'd really look forward to those tournaments, like 3-day weekend. And you'd see the same people once a year. And that's kind of how these cruises are, the same people. And it's a lot of drinking and old friends. And although we even did a line-out this time.
We did. That was actually the next thing that I was going to bring up. So Curtin and I have never ever played rugby together or been opponents or teammates or anything like that. But we did do some line-outs on the boat for a very specific reason. So
yeah, we shocked a Canadian who had never heard of one. And he was... I think he played tennis in high school or something. But we were on stage during a talent show. There was a song going on in the foreground. And in the background, we wanted to lift this tall Canadian guy up in the air. And so we had to practice. Tim didn't want to get kicked in the nuts.
Which often happens.
Which always happens with new people. I was very happy I was the front lifter. And so we're out by the pool deck, and we do a practice jump, and he doesn't lift his arms at all, which is very odd. Very awkward. I don't think I'd ever lifted somebody who just kept his hands down his sides. But of course, he didn't know what he was doing. But it was good. It was good times. It worked out.
Yeah, and there was no ball involved either. So it'd be so strange to jump without lifting your hands. But of course, with no ball, there's no sort of frame of reference or point.
Well, that's funny. That's when, you find your people, and then you realize they're not quite your people. Like, they don't really understand all the stuff that was so important to you. And it's been tough, with work or with grad school programs or whatever. You get in with a small niche, and then the rugby's on, like Six Nations are on, and everyone else goes to eat lunch or something, and you want to stay and watch the match by yourself. So it was good to find you on board. What, a year ago?
Yeah.
We did this a year ago as well, and it's always good to have some more ruggers on these big ships.
Yeah, but the lift went well in the big show. We got him up there. We did a full rotation.
360.
A full 360 at the peak of his jump.
He didn't fall down.
Didn't hurt himself.
No.
Basically all went pretty well. So, let's rewind a bit, Curtin, and let's go back to how you first got into rugby. And of course, you're from the States. So, just moving a jammy dodger towards the front of the case there.
Just getting it ready.
Just loading the jammy dodger up. You, of course, grew up in the States, so I'm interested in what rugby's like there as a young fella, and when you first got into the game.
Well, it's not. That's the short end of it. I'd heard of rugby shirts.
Right.
Yeah, like a Ralph Lauren shop. And actually in high school, I played all the sports: American football, swimming, track, basketball, baseball, wrestling. I did all this stuff through my childhood. And one of my American football teammates was renting a game or something for Xbox or PlayStation, and it was a rugby game. And he had never heard of it. I'd never heard of it. So he popped it in, and we played France against Russia or something.
Yeah.
And we had no idea what the controls were, and we gave up after about 20 minutes. We're like, this is weird. People kept lining up. Or they would get in a huddle and we're like, forget this. So that was my brief experience with it. It wasn't until my first year of university that I actually properly got into it. I remember it was Thursday. It was August 26th, 2004.
Nice.
My first day of rugby. And I was actually on the American football training pitch trying to join that team. And I had my boots on. And I was... at training, and I decided to quit. I said, you know what? I did this as a younger man. I don't want to do it. In university, I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to do stuff that I want to do, have new friends, new experiences.
What position were you in American football?
This is funny. Bonus point if you've heard of it. I was a long snapper. Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wait, is that for the punt kick?
Yep, it's for punts and for field goals. There's a special guy who bends over and throws the ball between his legs really far. It has to be a spiral. And it's like, that's it. So when I was younger, I played everything, like linebacker, receiver, quarterback. But at the high level, it's just a long snapper. It's very boring. Anyway,
very specific.
Yeah, no glory. So I'm walking back from the American football pitch with my boots around my neck. And I bump into a guy we call Dickhead, which is a rugby name. He went to high school with me. He's got a big scar across the top of his scalp from a surgery. Right. And he had gone to high school with me. He was my American football teammate 2 years ago. He was a year older. So I hadn't seen him in a while. And he had his boots around his neck. And I said, hey, Dickhead, I didn't know you went to school here. He said, yeah, I didn't know you went to school here. So we chat for a minute. And he said, I'm late for rugby training. Are you coming? I said, no. He said, why have you got your boots around your neck? And I said, I just left football, And he's like, well, come with me. We'll catch up during the training. You don't have to join if you don't want. And then we'll talk afterwards. I was like, oh, okay. So I just turned around and followed him to the rugby pitch we were late, and our coach had already had us doing exercises. So Dickhead and I became partners, like wheelbarrow and just fitness.
Yeah, right.
And we did fitness first, and almost threw up. We were doing CrossFit. Our coach had the first CrossFit gym in Atlanta in 2004.
Right, and he wanted to make use of it.
And he wanted to make use of it. He was doing all the workout of the day crap and all the just Tabatas and body weight stuff. So we I think I threw up, and they're like, well, what position can Curtin play? And all I knew how to do was spin a ball, from above my head forward in a spiral. And they were like, great, he could be a hooker. That's all you got to do. You just stand over the side.
Stand up a bit, yeah.
And so, 2 days later, we had a scrimmage on Saturday against the local men's club, and the coach just threw me in. I started the match. I played 15 minutes, got about 7 penalties. And I remember the moment I fell in love with rugby was that Saturday. I remember it was 3-3, first half, and I saw the ball on the ground, and I kind of went to dive on it, and basically I ended up getting stepped on. The other team was rucking me out, and they were like, he's got his hands on it. I got my hand stepped on, my shoulder, and the guy was like kicking me, and the ref blows his whistle, and I hear people saying, penalty. And I'm thinking, yes, these guys are kicking me and stepping on me. It's not allowed. The ref points at me. He's like, you didn't let go of the ball. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? I couldn't believe it, because in my country, the customer's always right.
Right, yeah.
And if you feel like you're the victim, it's like, you want a lawyer to help out and say, my client has been treated unfairly. And I learned quite quickly in rugby that's not how it happens. And I really love that. So that was the beginning. It was a chance meeting with my boots. I went to practice with Dickhead, and then I played that Saturday, and I just loved it. And from then it was the community and the guys and everything else. So, 2004.
Nice. Well, we've spoken about rugby a few times, but actually we never spoke about what position we played, so I didn't know we were fellow front rowers back in the day.
I used to be bigger too.
yeah, same.
Yeah, people see me and they're like, what are you, like a $180? Like, wow.
But hooker's a great position because you're involved in the game the entire time.
Yeah.
And I could see somebody like you that would really suit your mentality.
It was, to be honest, out of everything I've done, it was probably my favorite position. I wasn't necessarily the best at it, but I really enjoyed it. One, immediately from the beginning, you have the camaraderie with the front row and the tight five players. And later on in rugby, as I became a coach and a ref, and from the women's side and the men's side as well, that's something that's really kind of unique. And I didn't even find it in other sports either. Like, baseball players, the outfield is not really that tight.
No.
In basketball, the two guards don't really hang out. but in rugby, like those tight five, when you're training together and people are comparing you to the other side's tight five, and it's kind of that badge of pride.
Yeah, it's like a little tribe within a tribe. Almost.
Yes, yeah, and I really like that. It was a hard effort, scrum after scrum, in the mud and stuff. But then sometimes it's a nice moment of almost clarity. It was like a meditation where you just go through the motions.
Yeah.
I know they changed it, but like crouch, touch, engage, the old ways, and you just get there as a hooker. You've got your two mates, and you can kind of close your eyes. They take care of, the position stuff. Your job's just to bend that leg, and then you hold on. And for those 2 seconds, you're just kind of floating in a sea of like muscle and anger, and sweat, and your legs are off the ground, and no matter how you move, you're stuck. And that's just a weird kind of, I don't know, it's like you're giving up control.
Yeah, you've got to have a lot of trust
to
play hooker. You've got to really back the guys you're next to.
I remember one time we had just had a prop twist his spine, and he had to retire from all sports. It was terrible. He was only like 20. And so we were really nervous about scrums and like danger and safety and all that. And about 2 weeks later, I'm hooking, and we're playing a team with a new, I think, loose head. and it goes down pretty bad, and we're all tangled up. And I remember I'd fallen forward, and my arms were out like Batman.
Yeah, splayed.
And I'm upside down, and like one ass cheek is like up in the air, and leg this way, and there's a flanker like in my knee over here. How do you get over there? And as the ref's unpiling us, it's like, slowly now, slowly, careful now, careful. You know, I can see upside down. I can see our old prop with a twisted back. He's just like looking at this mess of bodies being pulled out. And I'm like, oh man, like this is I don't know, this is heavy.
Yeah. yeah. Hope everybody's okay.
Yeah, that was fun. I really liked Hook. The finesse side as well, those lineouts, you have to have that little golden touch. I felt like that guy from the meme who pinches the salt with his little fingers, you know. And then you're smashing people on defense. They're like, we need forwards. I'm like, well, that's me. You know, I'm a forward. So it was a nice mix of like big, heavy hitting, teamwork, giving up control, and also finesse. And it was nice to be the fastest forward as well.
Yeah,
that was very helpful. All the backs would be over there. I'd get the ball and like zip, zip.
Off you go.
Yeah, I could also kick. So it was like not many front rows doing Gary Owens.
No, it was none.
So that was always a fun mismatch.
But that's the magic of our sport, right? In particular comparison to American football, he just said the roles are so narrow,
so similar.
But in rugby you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, you know, like when they do those fights and the stats before, they do height and reach and like weight, age, and sometimes it's identical with boxers. Like they're both 6'1", they're both 210, they're both. It's like that's like American football. Like you're gonna have a linebacker be the same size pretty much, whereas in rugby you can have these little buggers that are like great tacklers, really quick. And then the other side is gone for a slower, larger player at the same position. And so you get these awesome mismatches. A prop that can make cuts, or like a number 10 who's like a huge tackler.
Yeah.
And you just use that to your advantage. And I really enjoyed that side of the game.
Yeah, because every game's new, right? So you have to work out who's got the skills on each team, right? And who's going to be able to play something maybe outside of expectations.
We would get injuries, which would totally change the game. We had a player who we needed to, have good hands.
Yeah.
A bigger guy we put in at number 12, and we had all these back row. I remember in a backline moves. We're like, oh, the 12's important here. The 12's important. He busts up his finger in the first half, and we're like, well, we can leave him there and crash.
Yeah.
Or we can replace him and continue the back strategy. But our only replacement was about 40 pounds lighter. And we knew the other team had these two centers that were going to do this. And I love it. It's this nice mix of ability and chance and skill. Just really, really amazing. I never played a game that was so reliant on the players.
Yeah.
Because, I should say, a group of players. In basketball, you can have one LeBron James and just win. In American football, the coaches are calling all the plays, making hundreds of substitutions. It's like a chess match between two managers.
Yeah.
Then you get on the rugby pitch, and our manager used to just smoke a cigar. And he used to say it was good for our stamina, because we would be choking on cigar smoke in training, and the other team wasn't, He's a funny guy. And we go out there, and it was all us. He was done. He would just watch the match.
Yeah.
And we would have to recognize, we're getting killed on those kicks. Like, wingers, pull back. You talk to the fullback, figure it out. That was great.
Yeah.
I love that. I really love that.
Yeah, you have to think on the pitch.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about this, in particular in terms of this podcast being an amateur rugby podcast, those differences are more extreme at the lower ends of the game. Like professional game now, a lot of the time it all looks the same to a degree, like certainly in relative terms. But it's why the lower end of the game is so magical, because you just see some weird shit.
It was funny. We would get all these new guys all the time, because in America, much like my story, a lot of young people had never heard of the game. we get turned on to it at university. So we'd have our core players, and then 2 new guys would just rock up. And we got to do the whole thing all over again.
Yeah.
Like, 80 minutes. Here's what the ball looks like. Yeah? And we'd show them professional rugby. The wingers are always scoring.
Right.
Always. So they're like, oh, I want to be a winger. You just run around, and some guy gets tackled, throws you the ball, and you just put it down.
You
it's
catch
easy.
it, put it down.
Score. So we had all these guys that are wingers on the team. They never touched the ball. Because at the lower levels, you don't have that same skill at 9, 10, and 12 to get the ball out there. So we had this guy that was a super fast winger and amazing. And didn't touch the ball all day. He's like, when am I going to score? I'm like, well, probably next week, maybe.
Yeah, maybe once we worked on our skills just a little bit more.
That was great. And kicking looked so easy on television.
Yeah. All over the place.
Oh.
So what was it like in terms of your rugby ambition as an American? Were you aware of anywhere to go? Like, was the national team in the press at all, or were there like higher level clubs that you could potentially move on to?
That's actually a great question, because in the US, the bigger sports are so clear cut.
Yeah.
It's very obvious from a young age. You can get a scholarship to university. You're going to be sponsored by Nike. You're going to play on these channels on television. The stadiums are, 82,000 seats for this school and 100,000 for that school.
Yeah.
And then NFL contracts are very open. You know how much money this player's making. Rugby, none of that. We couldn't even name a single player on the national team.
Right, okay.
We didn't know, does the 7s team practice with the 15s team? Do we have a headquarters? Is it in Colorado or California? We had no idea.
Yeah.
How do they pick the national team? Do they come from, California, Chicago, New York? Are people visiting, scouting these teams? Do we have to make a film and send it in, like an application?
Yeah.
And even closer to home, as a 19-year-old, if I'm the best player, what happens? Is there an all-star team? Do I get selected for a regional side? And you kind of have to figure this out. And as you're going, things change. So your regional all-star side will say, oh, we're merging with the next region. Or we don't have money to fund an all-star tournament, so we're just going to put an all-star team on paper, like an award ceremony.
Oh, okay. Right.
And you're like, wait a minute. So I'm not going to be able to train with these guys?
Yeah.
Other times you go to nationals, and maybe one team can't go because they don't have the money or the time off, or different schools might have a different exam schedule.
Right.
Religious schools and stuff like that. It was so hodgepodge.
Yeah.
And no one really had this clear view. And even if you did, real life would get in the way.
Yeah.
You'd have an internship at Georgia Tech with some engineering firm, and Georgia Tech rugby would ask you, can you go down to Florida to this all-star camp? And you're like, well, I mean, I want this job. And I'm an intern.
That's quite important.
I could take a day off. And they say, why? Family, death, a marriage. No, I'm going to a mid-level rugby all-star training camp.
Yeah.
They're like, what?
What's rugby?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was pretty tough. It was tough. But it was cool because it was not so clear-cut. All of the the angry dads who are pushing their kids to be stars would play some other sport.
Yeah.
They weren't in rugby.
Yeah, right.
All of the big money wasn't there, messing things up. So he didn't have that many egos. Because if you had an ego, you should play, basketball.
Yeah, and rugby flushes those people out.
It's in the States.
Yeah.
But we did have enough money to have our own pitches, our own kits. Travel, for the most part, was accessible. Buses and planes and cars.
What kind of region were you playing in? Like, how big an area?
Oh, yeah, good point. So when I started, we were in what we call the South, what other people would maybe notice as the Southeast. So in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And our region went from Louisiana, like Arkansas and the Mississippi River in that area, all the way to the ocean, up to the bottom of Virginia.
Okay.
So everything like the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, that was all the South.
So that's vast.
It's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bigger than a lot of countries.
Yeah.
And I would say every major university had a team. And then men's club wise, places like Memphis, Nashville, Atlanta, Charlotte.
Yeah.
These cities would have teams, and then smaller places. But the smaller places might not show up with 15.
Right.
So we had a tournament once. It was absurd. A large university that was Division 1 had 4 sides, and they were hosting. We were Division 2, and there was another Division 2 school. We were each going to bring 2 sides.
Okay.
And so the big school would host and play 4 straight matches. We actually only had 17 players. But we're like, you know what? We've got a full game's rest while the other team is playing.
Yeah.
We'll just play the same squad twice.
Right.
No problem. So we show up, and there's only 2 teams. It's the home squad and us.
Right.
And they're like, oh yeah, the other guys, they cancelled this morning. We're like, what?
Oh, God.
So we played the A-side match. I think we lost 77-0. And then their B-side team is ready to go.
Yeah.
Oh, and we lost our scrum half to a broken collarbone. So now we're down to 16. They're like, are you ready for the B-side match? I'm like, no, of course not. Like he's still bleeding. He hasn't even put the dressing on. At least let the blood dry. That was ridiculous. We ended up only playing 3 matches, not 4, but 3 in a row.
2 in a row is ridiculous.
Against fresh people.
Yeah.
And we only had the 1 sub, so they were nice to us and allowed us free substitution for the 1 player.
Oh, that is nice.
At certain points of the game, we let a really easy try in, and we were like, oh, that was too easy. We realized we've got 3 players off the pitch, so we're playing with 13. Like,
oh my God.
But that was a good times because, like you said, at the lower levels, all these differences are really magnified.
Yeah.
And so the big school had they had 2 pitches. They had a proper coach that they paid really well. They would always go to nationals. They would actually recruit people from high schools that had rugby. Whereas with us, we had just stumbled onto it.
Yeah. And literally yourself stumbled onto it.
Exactly. So there were big differences. But we would meet the guys. We'd meet an all-star, and you would say, well, how does that work? And he would say, oh, in the summer you can pay to go to this camp, and then if you're one of the best, they pick you, and then they'll tell you what to do. You're like, oh, okay. Right. So I ended up at an all-star camp for the South, which is really great. And we had our head manager was from Middlesbrough over in England. And that team was going to play in nationals. We had 7 regions in the U.S.
Right.
Like Southern California had their own region, like the Mid-Atlantic, the Midwest, stuff like that, and the South.
Yeah.
And so if I had done well on that team, that's where they picked the national squad.
Right.
And I was like, oh, wow, cool. Like, this is how close I am.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for me, or fortunately, I had already decided to quit America and move to England that summer.
Right.
So they said, like, we're thinking about selecting you. Are you available, June, blah, 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 July? I said, no, I'm going to be in England. And the English manager kind of looked at me like, well, that's too bad.
Yeah, maybe you should have lied.
But good for you, like you're going over there, and then you get a better experience. So that was cool. That was kind of the end of my American dream, because after playing overseas, I was hooked on that. It was just so exciting to play in different styles and to play with people who had been doing it for 20 years, to have fans and supporters that knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And to be able to watch it in the pub. So you'd play a match, and then you'd go to the clubhouse and watch the professionals while you were drinking. Yeah. Same time zone.
Yeah, perfect.
None of that Satanta BS. Oh, that was great. That was really good.
That's amazing. You've just done my little segue job for me. Because I was just about to say, Curtin here is wearing a Shenzhen Rugby Club Dragons tank top. So I was going to ask you about traveling and playing rugby all over the world, and some of the places that you played, and some of the experiences that you've had. But I don't know, maybe start with England.
Yeah, that was my first club, Whitehaven, and that was a union team. I played rugby union, of course. Yeah. But I didn't know that league was big in the north in England. So when I arrived in Whitehaven, small town, it was I don't know 3,000 people or something at the time, and there was this stadium, and it said like rugby, support your local club. I was like, oh wow, we have a stadium, and I saw a guy holding a rugby ball. I said, oh, this is gonna be great, and so I go up and they're like, no, this is league. I'm like, oh. Where does the union team play? And I was like, oh, it's just that square over there next to the cricket pitch. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine, I guess. They had their own clubhouse, they had their own land, they had their own stuff. And so I go and I join the local union team, and they had just won the Cumbrian League. They had been promoted to the Northern League. They're going to play teams like Blackpool, Carlisle, some smaller clubs in Newcastle, and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. And I was the only non-European there. They had never had an American play rugby, coming through. Yeah. And so they had very, very low expectations of me. And so I went to two trainings, and then it was the weekend, and I went to church. There's a Catholic church there, and said hi to the priest, and he said, "Oh, you play rugby?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, great! You'll be out for Wednesday's training then." And I'm like, "No, training is Tuesday, Thursday." He's like, "No, we train on Wednesdays." I was like, No, I know all the guys, like Benny and Marcus and Paul, and he's like, no, I don't know those guys. And I'm thinking, this is a town of 3,000 people. There's already a league team with a stadium. Now there's the union team. What's this priest talking about? He's like, well, we've got a church team. What? No way. Like, how many people are on it? And he's like, well, all the Catholics are on the church team. And then the city team is all these C of E people. Other people. I was like, oh my gosh. And then I found out that the police and the fire have a team from like St. Bees and Workinghead and like all the nearby towns. Yeah. I was like, wow. I had no idea there were so many rugby clubs, because I was used to that American model where you have a city of 5 million people with like two clubs. Yeah. So that was awesome. That was really great. The priest got mad at me for not being on the Catholic team. But really good. I found a job through these guys, and they were my first real community. Yeah. They would help me learn about life in the UK. That was 2006. And so the World Cup was coming. They would teach me all the football songs, all the Vindaloo, this and that. And one of them put me on the Spitting Image, the old show with the puppets. Yeah. So I got a nice backlog of like 80s and 90s British jokes and stuff. And that really helped me. And everything I owed to the rugby club. Really awesome stuff. Really awesome. And that was England in the beginning. Yeah. Nice. But China too. China. Yeah, China. Let's see. I did the US and England. I went back to the US, and that was the first time I was the captain of my team. Right. And I was into reffing when I coached the first women's team at a university in the US. So now I was like really well-rounded, spectator, player, coach, and ref, learning a lot about a lot. And I had moved from 2 to 6 and 7. Yeah. And I would fill in at 8 sometimes. One year our scrum half got injured. And because I was a referee, the coach said, well, you know the laws. You be number 9. But I was like 180 centimeters, and I was, pounds, what kilo? I was about like maybe 90 some kilos as a 9. Yeah, that's a big man. And I was fast. And so it was an incredible mismatch physically. But skill-wise, I couldn't kick as well as them. I couldn't pass as quickly or as long. So it was this weird mismatch. So when I started to travel the world, I would just plug in to whatever they needed. Right, okay. By the time 2008 came around, I was playing in Italy, Austria, and I was popping into trainings in Romania national team.
Right.
I walked by their facility, they were training, so you just like start chat to the medical team and the managers and stuff. And so Lithuania and places like that. So by this point, I could do everything. They'd be like, "Oh, we need a winger, we need a fullback, we need a lock." I'm like, "Well, I'm not that tall, but I know how to do it."
Yeah.
And like I know the responsibilities, and I'm not gonna like totally screw it up. And that was really great. So when I played in Italy, the big guys wanted to be like Ronaldo. They wanted to hop around and do all the cool moves, which is strange because in England, even the medium-sized guys wanted to be big guys.
Right.
Smash in full speed. So playing with these Italians up in Piedmont region, it was so odd. Like they'd get the ball full steam and they'd stop and like hop to the right, hop to the left,
Okay.
and then get like wrapped up and slowly brought down. And I'm like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. So they're all about avoiding the contact, whereas in England, particularly back in those days, I'm sure, and particularly in the north.
Yeah, I mean, the Italians they had their own strategies, but it was almost like trying to do the fancy thing without doing just like the easy thing.
Yeah, okay.
You know, like you're not going to make a lot of meters, but just smash, crash it in, and then figure it out with the space.
Yeah, once you've got some space.
Everybody
then
wanted the
with it.
space.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted the space. And then I went to Austria, and they were ranked, I think like 86th in the world, one of the lowest teams.
Yeah.
We were in a group with Norway, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Lithuania. And there were 3 groups of 5 down at the bottom tier in Europe.
Yeah.
Lithuania was by far the best. They had like been pegged low and had gotten better and better and better.
Right.
I think their current standing will show. I think that they're like in the 30s or low 40s. They're much, much higher. And they just whooped the shit out of us. like really bad. We were, our team was actually on YouTube for a while.
Wait, so you played?
Well, kind of. I trained with them. Yeah. This was a very upsetting moment. 2 very upsetting moments in my life was with the Austrian team. Good guys. Austria for years had allowed foreigners to play on their national team. And then like about 2 years before I arrived, they changed the rules.
Right.
And then it had been a disaster. Like they used to compete decently with teams, and then once it was all Austrians, they would lose like 60-0.
Yeah, right.
So the year before I arrived, they said, "All right, we can use some players if they live in Austria, they have some kind of license or marriage or working school for a few years." So I was working my way in, like, look, I'm at school here, official university, I'm American, and we would train together. We'd have like pretty much only 3 like top clubs, and my club won the national championship. So the captain of the national team was my roommate for a bit, and he was our lock. And we had a really good number 13. And the 3 of us were kind of like tight. We're like, all right. We played one match against a super Hungarian squad that was their all-star team. And they played the national anthems beforehand, and I was starting at 9. And to me, I was thinking, like, this is the closest to a cap I'm ever going to get. Like, for sure.
Yeah. Standing tall, standing proud.
Yeah. I call it my visor. This is like, not a full cap. Just like the bill. So I have one visor against Hungary. But I was getting injured, as you do. And I had just been diagnosed with diabetes at this point. And that really killed the whole thing because it took a long time to recover. So the national coach, was saying like, hey, come do this training. We've got to play Lithuania. We've got to play Norway, Bulgaria in the next like 2 months. And I busted both my ankles. Yeah. And, he said, all right, don't worry about it. And I said, all right, I'm going to start traveling. And this is actually when the travel started to replace the rugby for me, because I couldn't be as valuable as a player. So I started just to, visit like the Turkish rugby office and just like, schmooze and chat. But I really miss it.
How's the body now? Like, are you kind of fully functional, or is it a mess?
Yeah, so last game of the season, last time I played, so June of 2018. Last 10 minutes of the match, one of our teammates, a Chinese lock, kind of went for a tackle and missed, did a helicopter. He had his arms around the guy's waist and his legs spun around, went into the outside of my knee, tore my MCL. And it had been a fun experience, like finally having a knee injury. It had been like the one body part I'd avoided the whole time.
Yeah.
And really felt different. It felt very tender. And when I tried to put weight on it, I was like, oh, no.
Yeah.
Here we go.
That's not going to work.
Yeah, it's like when you're holding like a soggy biscuit or something, and you just feel it about to crumble. You're like, no. Yeah, put it down. So that was the kind of the end of that. But the way I got back into playing, because I lived in China actually for 3 years and didn't play rugby at all.
Right.
Well, that's not true. I went to one training. But I wasn't into it because after that 2008 experience in Europe, missing out on those national tests with the injuries, I tried to play Super League in 2009 in America. At the time, that was the highest level we had. Now we have Major League Rugby, which hopefully will stick around. But at the time, we had Super League. And Chicago had a team called the Lions. And, my opening match for them, my debut, they had me at winger. I was okay. It's the slowest I'd ever been.
Yeah.
And it was very high level, and they had me playing winger. So I felt like an imposter.
Yeah, maybe didn't give yourself the best opportunity.
Right. And very first time I touched the ball, I'm 6 meters away from scoring, and I knock it on. So my first touch is a knock on. The only time I touched the ball the whole first half. So now everyone's like, this guy's slow. He has no hands. What's he doing? And they're about to substitute me off. But one guy says, I'm a bit injured, take me off instead. So I make it to the second half. And I touched the ball 3 more times, and I scored 2 tries.
Nice.
Including a step on the opposing number 10, who was an Argentine best player on their team. So I kind of redeemed myself a little bit. And that night I got in trouble. I was late for my girlfriend's party that she was hosting, some fundraiser thing. And I was like, oh, honey, I played rugby. I did well.
I'm excited.
Yeah. But now the injuries caught up with me again. And then from pretty much 2009 until 2015, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I assumed my career was over.
Yeah.
Because you're in your 30s and you haven't played in like 5 or 6 years and from injuries, and it's just, you're done. And there I was in Uganda. And they love rugby. They love football, but they love rugby as well. And they've got a decent sevens team. They've got a nice rivalry with Kenya. Really fun. And Uganda was hosting like the Tier B championships. So Tier A, people like Zimbabwe, Kenya, Namibia. And then Tier B are people like, Mauritius. Who else was there? Uganda was there, Zambia. Yeah. Teams like this, they try to fight into that top, like, qualifying spot for a World Cup, maybe. Something like that. And that was really fun. We saw people from all over Africa coming in to support rugby. And rugby had sponsors, big beer sponsors. They had their own stadium with a clubhouse. You could go watch the Tri-Nations. You could also go play. And so I decided, you know what? I got to give it one last shot. I've tried European and American rugby. Let me try African rugby.
Yeah, nice.
So I'm the only white guy in the whole league. There's 8 teams in the top division. And I just walk onto the pitch. There were a bunch of guys running around. I didn't know this at the time, but the guys training were 2 different teams.
Oh, the same pitch.
The same pitch. Time. So one guy walked over to me named Hamza, and he was like, hey, my friend, come join us. And I didn't have boots, nothing. I had like jean shorts on or something. And I was like, all right, cool. So I went out and played. The other team that was training were the champions. And I learned that my team, they were called the Black Pirates, which is funny. I told my dad I was a black pirate. What? And they were the team that just escaped relegation. So they had barely made it in. So just by fate, I'm on the bad team instead of the good team.
Right.
Which I liked because, the challenge of getting better and all that.
Yeah.
So I played a whole season with the Black Pirates, and first full training when I had my boots, broke my nose. And then 2 trainings later, cracked something in the ribs. I was like, oh man, I've been out too long. And these guys were big.
Yeah, they're physical players.
And they didn't age, because let's see. When I left the game, I was like 24, 25, and there were other 25-year-olds.
Right.
And now I was in my 30s, and they were still 25.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. Nobody got older with me.
That's not fair.
We only had 2 players above the age 30.
Right.
So all these young guys had energy. They could run forever. I was like, oh, boy. And a very different style, again, compared to England or to Austria and all these, in the U.S. So that was really nuts. The Pope came on a Saturday. So the Pope was giving a speech at this huge old racetrack right next to the rugby pitch. The Pope was going to speak at 3:15 and the kickoff was 3:30. I was like, I want to see the Pope. So
it's going to inspire me.
Yeah, there's like 40,000 people in this arena trying to see the Pope. And he comes in his little car and I'm like waving. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, the Pope will now make a speech. I was like, I gotta go. So I run over to rugby, and I didn't start because I missed the warm ups. Mm. So I'm sitting on the bench in the first half, and you can hear the Spanish. El Dios de las personas muchas in Uganda. And I'm like, hey, I'm hearing the Pope speak Spanish while I'm playing rugby. I'm like, this is weird. That was pretty cool times. But then because I was back in rugby shape when I went back to China, the last time I joined a local club. It was the Shenzhen Dragons Club. Yeah. And our big rivalry was with Guangzhou up the road. And it was really cool because the world's focused on China now. Technology, and all these things coming out of China. So they would talk about Shenzhen versus Guangzhou in manufacturing. And then we would look into it as the Rams from Guangzhou versus the Dragons from Shenzhen, rugby rivalry. And we had beaten them for the national championship, I think in 2016? No, 2015. And then they had beaten us 55-7. So we're like, oh man, we're going back and forth. And with expat rugby, it's so crazy because your best 2 players could leave at the end of their contract.
Right.
And then your team sucks.
Yeah. Or because some of the expat players playing in countries like that can be really good, right?
Really good. It's really good.
Corporate led there as well. It's almost playing for the big companies.
Yeah, in Shanghai, before there was the British Chamber of Commerce, and they had a guy who played fullback, and I think he had played for Wasps or something. And you're like, whoa! I'm like, come on, what's going on? We had a guy who had played with Topsy Ojo from London Irish. Back in, he was an English guy, played with me in 2006.
Right.
And, they're like, oh yeah, we grew up doing this and that, we grew up doing this. And one guy was good mates with Martin Johnson, and he had learned a lot from him. And we had all the Kiwis and, South Africans and stuff who grew up under amazing coaches. And, I went to camp with the Blues for 3 summers. I'm like, oh shit. We're going to get rocked. Plenty of Pacific Islanders as well. Who were just tremendous. Yeah. Probably the best, maybe the 2 best I played with were both Fijian. Early on, my father was an agent. Is the right word. And for people overseas that don't understand, in America, if you play in the NFL, you need to have an agent,
right?
And your agent will negotiate your contracts and sort out things with the team and all that. So my dad was an agent. He understood how NFL teams worked, and he had worked with players. And so I was playing rugby with this Fijian guy named Luki Waikamakama. And he had gone to the Caribbean or something for a tournament. And he had flown back through the US and just got off the plane.
Right.
Like, no American visa. Like, no, I like it here.
Yeah, this seems nice.
And just ended up at, I think, Riverside out in California. And he was named National Player of the Year in like 2003 or 2004.
Right.
National Sevens Player of the Year for all the club level in the US. You're like, holy crap. This guy had an amazing first step. I watched him live, and then I watched Fiji on television.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, they're okay. You know, like, this guy is great. You know, they're okay. And he had another compatriot, Malachi Deli, who was much older, strong, fit guy. He was muscle and bone, and that's it. And he had been playing high level, like, you know, U18, U21 in Fiji at the time. So, but Lukey was so quick, and he would catch these high balls and just boom, you know, boom, boom. I told my dad, I was like, Dad, this guy could play in the NFL. And of course, like, no way.
Yeah.
You're just in love with rugby. You think everything's great. I was like, no, really, this guy is nuts. Like, I've never seen anything like it. And so I got my dad to watch him, come to a men's club game to watch this guy. And he was blown away.
Yeah.
He's like, how does he do that? Like, because he was returning kicks with no blockers, with 15 guys trying to tackle him, and you can't run into touch. And he was doing it. And my dad was thinking, like, what if he had blockers? What if he could run out of bounds?
Yeah.
What if he only had 11 guys chasing him, you know? And so we actually got him a tryout with the Atlanta Falcons.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, to, like, look at him. And they looked at his tapes, and they were like, holy shit. Like, yeah. And things get in the way, of course. You know, there's legal issues, and personal issues.
Right.
But even if he didn't make the team, if he had just made the practice squad, he gets like $80-some thousand a year, which is enough for him to send money to his mother in Fiji. It's enough for him to live off of. So that really got me excited about, like, even if I can't play anymore, my passion is to try to bring rugby up a level, like into more of the mainstream. The Jared Haynes coming over.
And Christian Wade from the UK.
Yeah, Wade, yeah. This is what we need. We need more people understanding, like, how nice the sport is. It's good for boys and girls.
Yeah.
Now with the concussions in the NFL, maybe the solution is take the helmets off.
Yeah.
Take the pads off. And I would love to see rugby kind of show them the way.
Yeah, inspire that.
Yeah.
Next step.
Already the Seattle Seahawks are promoting rugby tackling instead of the traditional put your head in front and get kicked in the face kind of tackling. So yeah, that's kind of what I'd like to see, because playing around the world with all these expats, they each have their own take. They came from a professional setting, or they came from Ukraine, where they never played rugby till they were 30. And then they were drinking with some people in China and said, hey, let's join the rugby team. You know, like, there's all sorts of people, and they all like the game for different reasons.
Yeah.
So trying to plug the game back into Ukraine or the NFL or whatever, that would be absolutely great.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
When do you think it'll ever happen? Do you reckon they'll ever get rid of the helmets? And if so, like, what kind of timeline do you think maybe?
They definitely don't want to get rid of the helmets. Yeah. I mean, everything from the helmet manufacturers, of course, but the team logos. It's such an iconic thing to put the helmet with the logo and all that. People love that.
Could wear like a swimming cap instead to get the logo on there, maybe.
Just a beanie when it's cold.
It's a different idea, maybe.
The bigger issue is that it'll change what they've been teaching. Like I said, with tackling, I was taught in American football, you put your head in front of the guy and drive your shoulder. And that way your helmet stops his progress. You try to tackle like that in rugby. We had a guy do that. He came out to play, a men's club called Atlanta Old White, and he had played American football. Came to tackle a guy, put his head in front, and got a knee to the face.
Yeah.
Just boom, knocked him out. Yeah. And he's like, oh, I tried to tackle the right way. We're like, nah.
Wrong sport. Right away, wrong sport.
So that would have to change a lot. The biggest problem with the NFL is that you have a lot of small fights going on.
Right.
Whereas in rugby, you have one.
Yeah.
There's one point of contact, which is where the ball is. You're not going to have two wingers fighting 50 meters behind the ball.
Yeah, right.
So the issue with the NFL is there's all this weird stuff happening behind you, and the helmet is very helpful for when you fall backwards and slam your head.
Yeah, or when you get hit by somebody you can't see.
Exactly.
Which almost never happens in rugby.
Exactly. And the problems they're having in the NFL are getting hit by people you can see. So taking the helmet off would solve that problem.
Yeah.
But we'd get more of the concussions from falling backwards and all that stuff. So,
yeah, it's a super complex issue, isn't it?
It's very complex. I think it might happen if there's a big injury.
Right.
If a big name player gets injured or a big name player dies, like at a college level, and it's a national tragedy, people will say something has to be done.
Yeah.
And then the traditionalists with their helmet logos won't have much to say.
Yeah. They're a lot more difficult.
Or maybe they could just start watching rugby, you know.
Let's leave on that.
Let them concuss each other. Let's just switch sports.
Yeah, happy days. Okay then, mate. I heard you mention earlier that you did some refereeing back in your day. So how would you say your rugby law knowledge is now?
Oh, I haven't been keeping up with the video stuff. I don't know what the video ref can call back and not, but I trust it's fairly similar. A mark's still a mark, you know?
Yeah, okay. I don't think anybody truly knows the laws. Not inside out, nobody. So this is just a bit of fun to try and increase the knowledge somehow. So with that in mind, Curtin, it's time to find out if you are a rugby law ball.
Sir, are you sure that's correct?
Curtin, this is your question. Team A...
5 meters.
is not even one of the possible answers.
All right.
Team A are awarded a penalty.
Okay.
They indicate to the referee that they intend to have a shot at goal.
Okay.
The kicking tee is brought onto the field.
Yeah.
And Team B collect for like a little chat under their own post while the kicker lines up the kick.
Got it.
Now the kicker, seeing plenty of space to the left and an unmarked teammate, he deliberately kicks the ball into the in-goal area where his onside teammate runs forward and grounds the ball. What does the referee do? Is it A, award the try? Is it B, give a penalty to the non-kicking team where the ball was kicked from? Or C, give a scrum to the non-kicking team where the ball was kicked from?
So the ball never went into touch.
Never went into touch.
He just misses the posts. It's a live ball. It's played by Team A. It's a try.
It's not a try.
Right.
Part of the question is he deliberately kicked it over there.
Oh, did he deliberately?
Deliberately kicked it over there.
So it's so bad that it looks like like a grubber or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's kind of looked and gone and deliberately kicked it. Deliberately missing the post.
I did not know that intention had anything to do with it.
Well, it does in this case, right?
Wow.
So it says, the law actually says if the team indicates to the referee the intention to kick at goal, they must kick at goal. Right. Allied to that is in the misconduct section. It says a player must not do anything that is against the spirit of good sportsmanship.
Aha.
So if they've indicated something, then they have to go through with it.
So it might be better. Let's say the ball's over near the touchline. So he's going to kick it to his left at the post, but he decides to kick it further to his left all the way across the pitch. You could get away with that.
You maybe get away with it. Maybe on a windy day.
But if the ball is on the left, maybe 15 meters, he should be kicking it to his right towards the post. And if he kicks it to his left towards the touchline, it's like a bit obvious.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, this question actually, this happened in a televised game this weekend just gone, which is where I got this question from, right? And it's so obvious that he looks, sees the guy over there, and then changes the angle of his run-up to deliberately kick it over there. And actually, I only saw it on Twitter, and because we've only been recently back on Wi-Fi connection, I'm not sure what actually happened. I'm not sure whether the referee gave it or not. I've only seen the setup to the question.
And then you looked it up.
Yeah, well, I knew the answer, and a few people answered it
So what is the answer? It's a penalty?
It's a penalty, yeah. And it could be one of two reasons. It could be misconduct, so it's against good sportsmanship, but also it could be under the unfair play section, where a player must not intentionally infringe any law of the game.
Wow.
Either of which is a penalty.
Interesting. And it's given at the goal line, or
at the mark, at where he kicks.
Oh, where the tee was. I was
Yeah.
gonna say,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's an interesting. And it's the word deliberate that's important, because if he just missed the post or it hit the post and bounced wide,
That'd be harsh.
Yeah.
Penalty. You missed. What?
not good enough.
Not good enough.
Yeah. Okay, so some more quick fire questions about stash kit. What's your favourite bit of stash you've ever received?
I remember my first Six Nations game was Italy, England in Rome, and I was down with some teammates from Ivrea, the club I was telling you about.
Yeah.
And a guy brought me an old long sleeve jersey with some Italian manufacturer that I'd never heard of, and it was a quadrant, a purple and bright red, and their logo was a scorpion, and I was like, this is hilarious, I love it. And it was a flanker shirt. They're like, this is yours, you can wear it. So I learned the Italian national anthem, the words to the song, and I already knew the English one. And so I bought one of those half scarves with Italy, England, and I had my ridiculous scorpion shirt, and we sang the national anthem, Fratelli, and full stadium, amazing match. It ended up, it was like a 5-point difference, so it was exciting to the very end. Saw Johnny Wilkinson play for the first time, and like just amazing, that shirt, the ugly ass scorpion.
The memories that go with it.
Oh, it's so good. So
nice.
good.
Okay, so next stash question. What is your favourite kit of all time? So this can be any team from any era. Don't have to have played for them or represented them. Any shirt.
I'll tell you what, it's not a great looking one, but as I was learning about what rugby was, like who are the Tri-Nations, what is sevens, I came across an All Blacks Barbarians match. And I was like, what's a barbarian? I don't understand. What nation are they from? And just the idea of like, this is our logo, this is our kit, we're the barbarians, and it's always changing. I love that. I love that idea. So that kit's always got a special place. Black and white, which is cool.
Nice. And is there any current kit that you really love, or conversely, is there one that you think that's disgusting and should never be seen on a rugby field?
I love the evolution of Japan's kit. Like, no one really cared what it was 10, 20 years ago. And then, of course, when they knocked off South Africa in opening match 4 years ago, people started to pay attention. And then building up to hosting, people are going to focus a lot on your kit.
Yeah.
I think they've done a really nice job. It's modern looking, but it still has the cherry blossoms. Yeah. So it looks a bit traditional. Very iconic. Now we all know those red and white, like really thick stripes of Japan. And they've done well. I mean, they won 3 out of 4 years ago. And this year they won 4 out of 4 in their group and then lost. So they're 4-1. They're 7-2 in their last 9 matches. And they lost to Scotland on short rest. And they lost to South Africa, world champions.
Yeah,
not bad.
Yeah,
not bad. And they beat Scotland this time, so it's like they've avenged, and they beat South Africa before, so they don't have a losing record. Against anyone in the last 9 World Cup matches. Yeah. That's pretty amazing. So I think their kit's done a really good job. I like that kit. I had a South Africa shirt back in 2007. I was living with some South African people. And had the bop, and of course now they've gone away from that, putting their Pretoria. So I kind of missed the bop. It's sentimental. I understand why they did it, but I just liked it. It was a different animal than in America as well. We don't have any jumping, African animals
in America. No.
Yeah. So I was kind of sick of all the wildcats and the bulldogs and the eagles. So it was always kind of cool to have a shirt that had a springbok leaping on it. So I kind of missed that, but yeah.
Never mind. Well, Curtin, something else people might not know about you is you can sing the national anthem for all the major rugby playing nations. Now, I'm not going to ask you to do that now.
Yeah, it'll take you about 28 minutes.
Yeah, but if people wanted to learn how to do that from you,
Yeah.
like how might they be able to get in contact with you?
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, you can always write me an email. I'm always up for that. You could probably stalk me somehow on the social ones, but email is probably the best.
Yeah.
Just Curtin at yahoo.com. But I've got lots of tips for how to learn national anthems, even if you don't have anybody that speaks it near you. But it's a really great way to meet people. Really, really great. I remember I was in 2006. I was in Berlin for the Football World Cup, and I learned the French national anthem and the German one. And you just make hundreds of friends, and people show you off. They'll go to their girlfriend and be like, "Hey, listen to this. Listen. Okay, do it. Yeah, do it." And everybody wants to get a photo with you. And sometimes they'll just like give you stuff like, "Here's a French hat. Here's a French scarf." That's really cool. Plus, when you're watching the matches and you know both teams' songs, you feel like you're properly geared up for the match.
Yeah, and you're everybody's friend as well.
And you're everybody's friend.
Yeah.
Most of the time, spectators just ignore the national anthems, or they'll get a beer or check their phone. But when they bring the flags out, I'm like, like Voci Galeli Africa, and people at the bar are looking at you. You're the only one singing, and they just let you sing. And some of the Dutch are like, "Oh, he's not going to know the Afrikaans part," or "Oh, he's not going to know the English at the end." And then they're like, "Oh shit, he did it!" And then you go into and all the Kiwis are like, "No fucking way!" He knows both. That's really fun. It's just it's a way to kind of like dig yourself a little bit deeper into the game. And when I was a referee, I would always try to learn a few words of the different languages. So even if a team spoke English mostly, if their captain was, Portuguese or something like that, in Macau, let's say it was like Hong Kong, Macau, and I would learn a few Portuguese words like cool down or you've got it or something just cool. And then you just throw that in there and the captain kind of smiles at you and he's like, like we've had 5 years of Chinese referees, British referees, French referees. No one's ever said anything to me in Portuguese. Right. And I'm like, oh, good. It's nice. He kind of brings the two sides a bit closer together. They listen to the ref more. As a fan in a bar during the Lions tour, you sing like the Australian anthem, and then you've got all your British mates around, and they're like, "Oh, are you supporting the Wallabies?" I'm like, "No, but I just do the anthem."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, that's good of you, mate. It's nice."
Like a mark of respect. And,
yeah. And it's great because when a team gets good, like a Japan or a Georgia or something, I'll say, "Hey, I should learn their anthem."
Right.
And it's kind of like welcome to the club. Yeah.
Greg Curtin's anthem.
My anthem club, the anthem circle. Like Ireland are in, Scotland are in, Wales are in. Yeah.
Might have to push Scotland back out again.
I should forget Canada's.
Okay, mate. Well, listen. This is we'll bring this to an end now. It's been a real pleasure having you on, and I will link Greg's email up and other contact details in the show notes. So probably till next year, mate.
That's right.
I'll see you.
I'll try not to yell too much on the shit so I have my voice back.
Thanks very much again to Curtin. Always a pleasure to sit down and chat with him. Curtin is hosting a 5-day retreat in Mallorca this May. If you'd like to spend some time with an interesting guy who has lived among all sorts of cultures and delivers these perspectives as tools to sort out our modern day problems, then go to americarex.com for more details. I've linked that in the show notes below. If you've enjoyed this podcast, you could rate and review, but what I'd really like is if you mention it to someone in person the next time you're down your local rugby club. I'll be back with you next week when my guest will be Peter Short, the former Leicester Tigers and Bath rugby lock. Tune in for some incredible stories from the Tigers training field and lots more from his time in France and at Bath. Right, now I've recovered from my fall, I'm going to go and explore these amazing islands and see if I can find any of the wildlife they're famous for. So until next week, get out and play.